Hey guys, Preston here. Welcome back to another video. It's been a minute since we've been able to do a Notre Dame preview. Unfortunately, the team has been struggling with COVID-19 issues, which led to the original Week 3 game against Wake Forest being pushed back to December, and then the week after that was an already scheduled bye week. The bye week ended up playing into our favor though, because we really needed those 2 weeks to get as many people back as possible. This still seems Notre Dame probably won't be fully 100%. There'll be a couple guys out still, probably mainly due to COVID or contact tracing issues. From the sounds of it and based off the depth chart they released, though, it seems like most of the guys that we know are back. From injury as well, this is actually a huge thing. We'll get to see Kevin Austin in game for the first time this season. Kevin Austin was a highly touted recruit in 2018, I think a top 15 receiver in the nation. He hasn't seen the field much as 2 years here. This year was supposed to be his breakout year. He'd be the number one wide receiver, but he had to get a foot operation done. But he's on track to make it back this week. It will be limited from what I've heard. I think Brian Kelly said it'll probably be, don't expect more than like maybe 20 snaps from the kid. But it's a real good sign that we're getting him back now, because based off that, we can kind of work him in and get him fully going for the game we'll really need him. The big games against Clemson, debatably North Carolina, mainly Clemson. He should be fully good to go by the Clemson game, if he's healthy. Kyle Hamilton, the safety, will also be back this week. He did not play that USF game due to a tweaked ankle. The injury wasn't super serious to begin with, but they knew they didn't have to worry about trying to make him play, considering they're playing South Florida, who, as you know, they beat 52-0. They didn't really need him that game. But it'd be good to have him back against any conference opponent, and just in general, work him back into the game. Same with Bennett Skowronek, the kid who registered no stats before he injured his hamstring in Week 1 against Duke. Well, hopefully he'll get to be able to get something going. He didn't really get off to a hot start or anything. I think he had 2 targets for no receptions, but the receiving game as a whole has been rough, and so having Kevin and Skowronek back, Kevin Austin and Bennett, are huge. And Lindsey's saying he's starting to feel 100% also. So we can kind of get the receiving core fully back together and then work from here to expand what exactly it will do. Matchup-wise, ESPN's given us a 95% chance to win off the Football Power Index, and according to the Pick Center right here, the spread is 20.5 in favor of Notre Dame. That's a pretty big margin right there. We're minus 1,600 on the money line, and the over/under is set at 52. So it's definitely a game. This is a game we should win. We need to win. If we want any chance of anything, we have to beat this Florida State team. This is a Florida State team that lost. They got upset by Georgia Tech, who was voted by everyone in the media to be last place in the ACC this year, and had 2 wins last year, 2-10, and then demolished by Miami, 12th ranked Miami. Miami's a good team, but still 52-10. We got to do something similar, if we want to make a playoff case. Unfortunately, Miami's kind of set the standard now, where if you play Florida State, you got to wall up them. We should be able to, though. I'm going to get in some of the matchups that work really favorable for us in a minute. Florida State's coming off a pretty rough performance last week, where they were actually trailing at halftime to FCS school Jacksonville State. They did turn it on at the end and won 41-24, but it wasn't, let's just say, they struggled out of the gate against an FCS school, which is never really a great sign. They did find a quarterback, though. The quarterback they're going to be rocking with, they will use a true freshman this week. We'll find him after we go through some of the team stats real quick. So points per game, Florida State's averaging 21 points per game compared to Notre Dame's 39.5, almost 40. And Florida State is giving up 30.7 points per game compared to Notre Dame's 6.5, which is huge. If you look at it just for conference throws, they gave up 52 to Miami, which is bad. They held Georgia Tech to 16, so I'll give them that's kind of respectable. But their offense also only scored 13 that game, and they allowed an FCS school to put up 24 on them. Whereas Notre Dame has only played 2 games this year, but they held a Duke team to 13. Well, granted, this Duke team is looking less and less impressive by the day. Still holding the team to 13 points is good. And they shut out USF, which is obviously USF's better than Jacksonville State, and hold them to 0 compared to giving Jacksonville State 24. Kind of just gives you just a hint at some of the differences going on. Even just yardage, the offense, Notre Dame's offense is doing 435 yards per game. Most of that damage coming from the ground, where they average 229.5 yards rushing per game, which obviously is off the backs of two huge running game performances, week 1 and week 2. Passing, they're surprisingly doing 206. It seems a little high, but granted, most of these passing yards are the tight ends and running backs. They've really got to get these wide receivers going, and this game seems like a good one to try to get them going, especially with Kevin Austin having limited snaps. Maybe try to feed him the ball a little bit, get him back into action. Florida State averages 215 passing and 174 rushing. So, I mean, not bad numbers. Average 389 yards per game. They're giving up 420, though, compared to Notre Dame giving up 282, which isn't great. I mean, Notre Dame's held opponents under 100 yards rushing, allowing only 90.5 per game. The passing, I would love to fix a little bit. They're averaging 192 right now, mainly off Duke kind of threw on us a little bit relatively effectively week 1, but like I said, that was week 1, so... What kind of sucks is this COVID really did kind of derail the momentum that was going on. It's going to be interesting to see what Notre Dame looks like. They could look more like they did with like almost a week 1 kind of performance where they're going to be, I mean, they've had 2 weeks off, and it wasn't like this whole bye week or last week they got to prepare. A lot of these guys missed practices, missed time. I mean, every kid missed practices, but some of them are trying to come back from COVID. So they haven't really been physically active by themselves at home or anything either. Some of them were in quarantine due to tracing. So either way, like I said, it's not like they've gotten a lot of valuable reps with this time off. They're kind of just getting back into the swing of things this week. So hopefully, they might look a little rough to start the game. We'll have to find out. But hopefully they can shake the rust off. This is a game we should win regardless, but really the rust factors in the kind of if we blow them out or not. I hope we can, like I said, for our sake, because I know how the rankings people work. No, people love to hate Notre Dame. It's just the facts. And if, number 12 Miami spanks Florida State and we don't, it'll be something that people look at. Matchup-wise, real quick, just more team stats for you real quick. If we're looking at total offense, Florida State is currently 50th out of all the schools that are currently playing. I'm not sure how many there are. There might be 70-something. It's not the full 120-something. Whereas Notre Dame actually ranks at 27th in total offense right now. So there's a big difference there. I mean, the Notre Dame offense, I'd love for that number to improve even more, but that's a pretty good number right now. This is total offense from NCAA's website. If we go to defense here, just straight normal defense, total defense is what we're going to do. If I can get to it, sorry guys. Total defense. BYU is number 1 in the country. Notre Dame is 11th ranked in total defense right now, that's very good, just outside the top 10. And granted, they've probably played some tougher opponents than some of the schools ahead of them, as in Liberty and Air Force, Marshall, etc. But 11's pretty solid, especially when you consider they played their backups for half of that Florida State game. With some of those yards, most of the yards from the USF offense were generated in that second half. Whereas Florida State, if I didn't pass them, sorry guys, let me look. I'm going to have to do alphabetically or something so I can see them. I'm going to pause it for you so you don't have to deal with this. Florida State has the 48th ranked defense, so obviously Notre Dame leads by, they're almost ranked 20 spots better, at least 20 spots better, I believe, for both offense and defensive stats, total offense, total defense. So that, like I said, this is a game that Notre Dame definitely should win. 2 other huge things that kind of go into this game. Florida State currently is one of the most penalized teams in the country. They're definitely the top percentile of teams getting penalized the most this season. And their offensive line, like it has been the last couple of years, has been atrocious so far, like giving up almost double digits tackle for loss per game, and also currently has their quarterbacks, their rotation of quarterbacks. They've started 3 different quarterbacks, but that offensive line has allowed 11 sacks through 3 games, that's not great. That's close to like 4 sacks a game. It's definitely something you'd want to improve, and that's something that this Notre Dame defensive line needs to take advantage of. I'm hoping and expecting that they eat big time that Saturday night. considering the fact that they've given up 11 sacks to Georgia Tech, Miami, and Jacksonville State. See, I already forgot the name. Miami's defensive line is decent, but also I think it's Rousseau, or one of them actually is opted out, so it's not even. It's a good defensive line, but if you ask me, sorry, it's my dryer. If you ask me, Notre Dame has the best defensive line. No, that's so annoying. I'll get that later. Notre Dame has the best defensive line of anyone they've faced, and if I think it was Miami got at least 5 sacks on them. Out of the 11, Notre Dame should be able to have a game like that. At least 4 sacks I expect this Notre Dame defense to force, unless they're chucking the ball out in the second flat, and even then, that usually bodes well for the defense. If they can, if they're forcing them to throw it that fast, and hopefully the DBs can hold down the fort and get it done. So yeah, I really like the matchup for this defense. This offense of Florida State is nothing really to be proud of. If you know what I mean, they're not exactly on fire right now. I'm trying to get more into the. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna have to click on Florida State's team to get more of their stats. See what they're working with stats-wise. Their quarterback this week is the redshirt sophomore, I believe, who actually did pretty decent for them last week, kind of coming in and leading all the scoring drives against that Jacksonville State team. But to be fair, it was Jacksonville State, and I think he threw a pick when he had limited playing time against Miami. He currently has 222 passing yards for a touchdown and a pick on the year, so nothing crazy. He's a pretty mobile kid. He's a dual threat. I think most of the Florida State's quarterback room actually is. Chubba Purdy would probably be the best quarterback they have, but I believe he's injured and has not seen any playing time. So here we'll go. This is the impressive game so far. He's coming off a decent performance. I'll give him that. 12 of 17 for 210 yards and a touchdown against Jacksonville State, which is nice. I mean, 74.8 QBR, pretty solid performance right there. But like I said, he's not facing the Jacksonville State defense this week. This will be a real tough challenge for a kid who has seen barely any playing time. I think this will be his first ever full start, because I think he even had to come in like in the second half for Florida State last week. And have one of your first starts being against a Notre Dame team who has a top 15, borderline, just outside top 11 defense in the country, with a pretty dominant pass rush, if you ask me, who should be able to get pressure on him early and often. I'd expect it to be a rough night for Jordan Travis and this Florida State offense. They definitely have talent, though. This is the weird thing about this Florida State team. They're kind of a mess, and I think most people can admit that. But they got players who will be in the NFL on Sundays. Most notably on the offense, the running backs are always solid. They always have a decent running game. Lawrence Toffoli currently has 20 rushes for 163 yards, averaging 8.1 yards per carry. And the quarterback, Jordan Travis, has 139 yards on 24 attempts. So he's, like I said, he's a mobile guy, something you want to look out for. But Toffoli and Corbin are both running backs who have over 120 yards. They actually have 3 running backs who average over 4 yards per carry. So their run game is something they'll probably want to get going. That's something our defense needs to be capable of and ready for the shutdown. Like I said, their offensive line is definitely, they're probably worse at pass coverage than they are run protection, but run blocking. But I still think this Notre Dame defense can get the job done and hold their run game to a relatively little success. They've done it at least the first 2 weeks that Notre Dame has got to play this year. Receiving-wise, the guy you have to look out for is Tamorrion Terry. He should be at least a day 2 pick in the NFL draft this year. Currently has 129 yards and 12 receptions. He's the guy that we'll really have to focus on and try to lock down. I don't know if they'll have someone shadow him the whole time, but it'll be up to Nick McLeod, more than likely our number 1 corner, transfer from NC State. They'll do his job and hold this kid down. Might take some teamwork. Obviously, you can double team if you need to. You got some exceptional guys back there, notably Kyle Hamilton, who's really good in coverage and just one of the top safeties in the country. He can be used if needed. I don't know any of the other names other than that. They have a tight end named Cameron McDonald who has 122 yards on the year, along with another receiver in Ontario Wilson with 111. But like I said, just off rankings and everything, this is not a super explosive offense. Apparently they've had 2 different kickers too so far this year who've both missed we've both missed one field goal. Maybe that's something to keep an eye on, and maybe we can get a block, or they miss some of those. So I'm not super scared about this Florida State offense. I'm trying not to sound cocky, but I mean, if we're being honest, this is a team we should beat, and a team we should beat relatively big. Defense-wise for them, there is guys, again, like I said, some names. Notably, it will be on the defensive front with Marvin Wilson, who's projected to be a first-round pick in the defensive line. They've been actually pretty good against stopping the run, which obviously Notre Dame's strength this year has been that run game. But it's also been, they've done a decent, I think most of Notre Dame's runs, sorry if I'm rambling, has been to the outside zone runs, which means we'd kind of be running away from Marvin Wilson and their top skill on defense, which is they're really good at clogging the front. You know, you're not going to do a lot of inside handoffs with a lot of success against Florida State. So I think the zone run will still be important, which is something they've been working on and looked really good so far this year. I think keeping the rotation going, especially since these kids have missed a lot of time and who knows who's been dealing with COVID and whatnot, it'll help to keep them fresh and get them all involved. Passing game is something we need to see kind of go off. They have a decent corner, a pretty solid kid right there, and Asante Samuel Jr. If these stats are correct, he already has 3 picks and 2 passes defended on the year. That's something we want to look out for. Hopefully Ian Book doesn't make a mistake and throw his way. Book's already thrown a pick this year to that Duke team. So it might be our best bet to throw away from whoever Asante Samuel's on. But we have enough other guys that we can probably take advantage of this pass game. The truth is, their defensive line does not get a lot of pressure. They don't have a lot of sacks on the season. I think only 3 total all year, and I would assume most of them came against that Jacksonville State team. We have a top offensive line in the country. Pro Football Focus continuously rates most of our offensive linemen really high, including 3 of them always end up on like Team of the Week stuff for them. So we should be able to handle them. It'll be a test for them against Marvin Wilson, especially if you try some of the inside rushes. But I'm not real worried about that Florida State pass rush. In fact, I believe Duke's pass rush is better than Florida State's, and our line did a pretty decent job against them. So buying Book time in the pocket will be important for this passing game. Hopefully some of these receivers can finally start to get it open, getting going. We'll have some speed finally with a healthy Lindsey and, Kevin Austin looking to break out. And you'll still have the tall physical guys. So, like I said, they should be able to do well. Teams have really kind of thrown at will against this Florida State team. More than likely, I would guess, because they can't get any pressure, which means these quarterbacks have time, and eventually people will get open. So I'd look for Notre Dame to hopefully finally work on getting this passing game going to receivers today. There's still matchups we can exploit with those tight ends, though, so I don't rule out, Michael Meyer and Tommy Tremble having big games. Yeah, guys, So a little bit about kind of the team that they're working with. I've mentioned the top guys from Notre Dame continuously on defense. Obviously, Kyle Hamilton coming back is going to be huge, and his pass coverage will be good for us, especially if he can help us shut down Tamori and Terry, who's their best offensive weapon by far, if you ask me. Along with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, good all-around player in that linebacker position, which means he'll be a big role in shutting down this run game, and hopefully he can do that effectively, because if we can force them to pass, we can make that young quarterback make more mistakes. Offensively for Notre Dame, Ian Book is just got to make smart decisions. I mean, that's obviously every year, every game. But like I said, Asante Samuel is a kid who's already got 3 picks, and he's good at what he does, and I just need Ian Book to not make a mistake and give him his 4th interception on the season. Receiving wise, I think Kevin Austin, we'll see what he can do his first week back. It's going to be exciting to watch him. I mean, don't go crazy if he doesn't have a great game right off the bat. I mean, he had a foot surgery. He's been rehabbing most of this time. He hasn't really, gotten a lot of reps in. And then, I mean, heck, the whole team hasn't really gotten a lot of reps in the last 2 weeks. So I think we might start a little sluggish this game, but we are 20.5-point favorites. I think we can get that done. I think we can at least cover the spread. I've always been a little more safe with my picks. I didn't say Notre Dame would win 52-0 against USF, but I think this is a game we can go. I think we might look a little rusty, and I still don't know how explosive this offense is, but I'm going to say we win 35-10. I'm going to be a little conservative there, 35-10. That still covers the spread, though, but I think that'd be the under, actually. but it would cover the spread. So guys, sorry for my rambling. It's been a while since I've got to talk about Notre Dame football. Oh, by the way, I'm rocking the alternate Chase Claypool jersey. I think this number belongs to a walk-on receiver now, so, kind of sucks. But, hey, it all works out in the end. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know how you think this game goes. Do you think Notre Dame wins even bigger than what I said? Do you think it's going to be a closer game due to stuff like COVID, or maybe you actually believe in Florida State? Let me know what you think about this game. Let me know your impact players. That'd be awesome, too. Click up here for the playlist on my Notre Dame breakdowns. In my previews, I preview all the Notre Dame games of the season, as well as do the recaps after they happen. Over here is just a random video that YouTube is recommending to you from my channel, and if you click over here, you'll get to subscribe. Please subscribe. It means a lot. I'm trying to grow this channel as best I can, and I promise I will continue to bring Notre Dame and other sports-related content. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is K-May Preston, signing out. Go Irish.